Welcome back to Word of the Day with Lance Conrad. Today's word is ailment. Let me tell you a story. An ailment is a sickness or other health problem, usually not too serious. The rhinovirus causes the most widespread ailment, the common cold. In 1919, there was a specific ailment that started appearing all over the United States, especially in the larger cities like New York. These symptoms were pain in the stomach, dizziness, and sometimes blurry vision. As the months and years went on, the numbers and severity went up. Pretty soon it became clear that this was no small ailment. People were going blind and even dying. But this wasn't some new crazy bacteria or virus. These people were being poisoned by the government. Now, this isn't some crazy conspiracy theory. This was official policy. You see, in 1919, the United States passed the 18th Amendment, prohibiting the sale of alcohol. The problem was, manufacturing and industry still needed alcohol as a solvent and an ingredient in other products. So, to keep people from drinking the alcohol meant for industry, the government added methanol to all the alcohol. Methanol is chemically incredibly similar to drinking alcohol, but it's poisonous. The government slapped poison labels on all the barrels and figured people wouldn't drink it if it were poisoned. They were wrong. They were very wrong. People drank it anyway, and in large quantities, resulting in the ailment of methanol poisoning. The government increased the amount of methanol added to the alcohol, hoping it would stop the flow. It only caused the symptoms to ramp up to blindness and death. It was said at the time that the 18th was the only amendment to carry the death penalty. Our word today that we're going to be discussing, or rather the story, comes from ailment, meaning a sickness. And for the story on this one, we dealt with something that happened during Prohibition, which is where the United States banned alcohol. But there was already a lot of alcohol around for manufacturing stuff, so they added methanol to the alcohol to poison it, thinking that people wouldn't drink it. And instead, just poison mass amounts of citizens. Now, something that I did not bring up in the original script is that methanol is a form of alcohol. That's something that I had to use an oversimplification in explaining it, but as a science person, I'll admit it actually kind of hurt my soul a little bit to talk about how methanol was very similar chemically to drinking alcohol. I want to take a moment here and rectify that. The alcohol we drink is called ethanol. Methanol only varies from ethanol by a single carbon bond. They are both forms of alcohol. In fact, I'd have to check this, but I believe every form of alcohol is poisonous to human beings. Ethanol is just survivable. That's the drinking alcohol. We can recover from that one. But clearly it's all just a matter of dosage, because you still have people who die of alcohol poisoning.
Right.
And that's just straight ethanol. They just mix in a different alcohol. And that's why the government at least thought it would be really difficult to separate it, right? Most of the things you can add in, because they would try other things, like they'd mix in things that would make it stink or burn or all these sort of things. But the people would just put it into a distilling apparatus and redistill it, and you're good to go again, having got rid of that other stuff. But methanol, being an alcohol, was so incredibly close to it that you couldn't distill it out very easily. You couldn't separate it very well. In fact, that is still a problem to this day. That's why a lot of people who try to make their own alcohol sometimes end up blinding themselves.
Right.
Because they accidentally make methanol with the ethanol and get blinded.
Now, this is a strange question, but chemistry is much stronger your suit than mine. Is there a difference an observable difference other than when it kills you between methanol and ethanol? Is there a difference in taste, smell?
There is a difference. In taste, it is rougher.
Okay.
Okay. And generally, the bootleggers, because they first tried to separate out as best they could, ultimately just gave up and just started adding stronger and stronger flavors to it. So a lot of these speakeasies would have these rather bizarre drinks. In fact, we still have some of these crazy cocktails to this day of all these strong flavors, you know, peppermint and molasses and all these other things we mix in with alcoholic drinks that actually date back to Prohibition, with bootleggers trying to cover up the taste of methanol. So a lot of your crazy cocktails, that wasn't happening before Prohibition. People just drank whiskey or beer or wine or whatever it was. You didn't have all these crazy cocktails with all these crazy ingredients. That was bootleggers trying to cover up the taste of methanol.
How much methanol do you have to ingest before you start getting sick? Like, at the point that you can taste it, are you already in trouble?
Oh, absolutely. A teaspoon can blind you, a tablespoon will kill you.
Okay.
It is actually incredibly poisonous. It causes laceration, like little cuts, almost in the small blood vessels, which will not only damage organs, but that's also what led to the blurry vision and or blindness. It's almost a caustic kind of thing. We use that in another word of the day, was caustic. And yeah, it just kind of rips you up. And yeah, that was especially noticeable in the really small blood vessels, like in the tips of the fingers. Sometimes you would see damage from methanol poisoning, or in the eyes, where you have the blood going through these really small passageways that would actually get damaged by the methanol.
Prohibition, you mentioned that it did affect the way that Americans consume alcohol, in that, you know, there were various ways of preparing drinks that were different. The culture around drinking changed, and ironically, because of that, it actually led to a long-term increase in alcoholism in the United States. If you watch old movies, like for example, the Thin Man movies, which I highly recommend, but you go back and watch these movies from right after Prohibition ended, and they are almost non-stop alcohol ads. People were enthusiastic about alcohol, about being able to drink again. And I mean, to this zealous, sort of disturbing, I must be drinking always, isn't alcohol amazing, I love alcohol kind of way. So that was the one thing, was creating this first by making it forbidden fruit. You know, you can't have this, therefore you want it. And then following it up with, yay, this is glamorous, we're all so happy to have this back, and this makes us all feel better. It also removed a lot of the cultural safeguards that helped to discourage alcoholism. There were things that were just built into the culture that helped to dissuade people from overindulging. Right, in the same way. Judgy neighbors, yeah. But also, like, you think about some of the customs that we have around alcohol now, it's frowned upon. There is a stigma upon drinking before noon. In fact, drinking really before the sun goes down. The earlier you drink, the more people kind of look at you funny, right? That is one cultural control that we have on alcohol. There used to be a lot more. You know, you were just kind of brought up in a way that you had more respect for the dangers that alcohol consumption involves. But Prohibition, over just those few years, completely stripped those away, and in the long term, led to an increase in alcoholism in the United States.